again, I'm Dr. Wolfson, Dr. Jack Wolfson. I'm the Paleo Cardiologist. This is a depiction of my Amazon best-selling book, The Paleo Cardiologist. We've got 17 chapters in this book, and it's two of which are on paleo nutrition, and the other 15 chapters are all about the natural way to heart health. And we talk about sleep, we talk about the importance of relaxation, we talk about the tests that you need, we talk about supplements that are evidence-based, we talk about the pharmaceuticals and sometimes the dangerous natures of pharmaceuticals and also of procedures. That's in this book. And just a little review about who I am. I went to the Chicago College of Osteopathic Medicine in 1996. I graduated. My father was a DO. All of his friends were DOs. When it came time for me to apply to medical school in 1992, well, I, of course, chose his, where he was a cardiology professor at the Chicago College of Osteopathic Medicine. And I completed an internal medicine residency in 1999. There was a 3-year internal medicine residency, and then cardiology fellowship was another 3 years. I was chief fellow that senior year, and then I worked for a large cardiology group from 2002 to 2012 here in Arizona. I was a senior partner doing angiograms and pacemakers and all the high-tech procedures. I was the chairman of the Department of Internal Medicine at Paradise Valley Hospital out here in Phoenix, Arizona, and also the director of cardiac rehab. And of course, on the left is a picture of my beautiful family with my 2 boys and my amazing wife, who turned me from a conventional, what I call pill-pushing and procedure-pushing cardiologist into a holistic cardiologist. And this is my office now, Wolfson Integrative Cardiology here in Paradise Valley, Arizona. We've got patients that come in from all over the world for what I consider the best preventive cardiology care on the planet. And I do want to give you a little warning as to what we're going to be discussing tonight. Of course, this webinar is for informational purposes only. I'm not providing specific medical advice to anyone. Whenever you do anything regarding pharmaceuticals or supplements, please discuss those changes with your doctor. And once again, this is the opinion of me, and opinions do not necessarily concur with the American College of Cardiology, the American Heart Association, or any other society beholden to Big Pharma. Tonight I want to talk to you about cholesterol is king, and we've got this big fatty piece of tissue. It's actually a model in the depiction there. Cholesterol is king, and I'm going to be dispelling some myths about cholesterol tonight. We're going to be talking about the tests that you need, the importance of these LDL numbers, the HDL numbers, but not as how you all think they are. Cholesterol is just a biochemical structure that really only contains 3 different types of atoms: hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen. There's no heavy metals in this. There's no mercury and lead and arsenic, and frankly, there's no magnesium, and there's no potassium. It's just carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, really what are some of the building blocks of life. Now, cholesterol is very important to the body. In fact, we cannot live without it. One of the reasons why animals, if we worry about, and this is an unfounded worry about eating animal products because they contain cholesterol, it's because every animal species contains cholesterol. All seafood contains cholesterol. Eggs contain cholesterol because that's what a chicken needs to come to life. And one of the important things we see here is this cholesterol is in this cell membrane, and the cell membrane we can see down here bottom right in purple is what houses the cell. It keeps things inside the cell that belong, and it keeps things outside the cell that don't belong. Now, cholesterol is also what forms our sex hormones, our estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. All come from up here in the top left from cholesterol, and then different enzymes convert it into these necessary hormones. And the cholesterol also goes down this pathway to wind up as aldosterone, which is a hormone that causes us to retain sodium and therefore water, which regulates blood pressure. And this is a good thing. This is how we maintain sodium in our bodies, how we maintain water, and how we maintain our blood pressure. So what happens is when the ovaries, for example, want to make more estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, they call out to the liver to send cholesterol down, and therefore it is made into those necessary hormones. Cholesterol also happens to be very important when it comes to digestion. The liver makes cholesterol, puts it in the bile, which then is stored in the gallbladder, and when a fatty meal comes in, the gallbladder squeezes its contents to help liquefy or emulsify that fat for further breakdown and absorption into the body. Hopefully you're all getting the hint that cholesterol is super important. Cholesterol is also hit by the sunshine and turned into vitamin D. We all have heard so much about the importance of vitamin D and how critical it is to health. Every single disease is at higher risk when you have low levels of vitamin D. So we want high levels of vitamin D, which lowers the risk of everything. And here, the most important thing is sunshine. Animal products contain vitamin D. Eggs are a good source. Liver is a good source. There's a lot of good sources of vitamin D, and of course there's supplementation, but the best thing is the sun. But Dr. Wolfson, doesn't cholesterol cause heart attacks? My heart is swimming inside of the cholesterol. But in reality, that nothing can be further from the truth. In fact, the world-famous Dr. Michael DeBakey, cardiologist, cardiovascular surgeon who died at the age of 96, said this as far back as the 1970s. An analysis of cholesterol values in 1,700 patients with heart disease revealed no correlation between serum cholesterol and the nature and extent of atherosclerotic disease. So he's saying, in the studies they've done, they don't even see an association between total cholesterol and heart disease. I know this is shocking information to a lot of you, but this is what the world-famous, brilliant cardiovascular surgeon said. And in fact, if we look at data from 2008, we find that total cholesterol is linked to coronary artery disease, but just by a tiny fraction. This 1.08 really means that when you have the highest level of cholesterol versus lowest levels of total cholesterol, it led to an 8% increased risk. That's pretty small. That's not really significant. Now, we've all been told that LDL cholesterol is the bad guy, the boogeyman type of cholesterol. But I'm here to tell you that LDL has a reason. And LDL is the bus that ships cholesterol around the body. So if you remember a couple minutes ago, I said that the ovaries and the testes are responsible for making these hormones. Well, when the testes want to make more testosterone, they call out to the liver, send down more cholesterol, the LDL bus takes off and heads down to the specific organ, the testes or the ovaries, drops off its passengers, which may be cholesterol, which may be what's called phospholipids for that cell membrane integrity, brain integrity. It may be fat-soluble vitamins such as A, D, E, and K that are traveling in these LDL-like particles. CoQ10 travels inside of the LDL particle. This is a very important molecule, the LDL. That's why the body makes it. That's why every animal species also makes LDL. It's very important. We want to keep it useful. Now, I call this the Tim Russert syndrome because LDL-C is a measure of cholesterol, of LDL by volume. What matters is, though, is how we make up that volume. And I'll get to this in a minute. But what we want to know is the LDL particle number. Because if we've got these large, fluffy LDL particles that are the same weight as the small LDL particles, but this person is at much higher risk. More particles, higher risk. These small LDL particles are easily damaged. They get into the blood vessel lining, they set up shop, they set up inflammation, and that's when heart attacks happen. That's what happened to Tim Russert, who was on cholesterol-lowering drugs. But his LDL-C was, quote-unquote, low, but his particle number was high. So bear with me here. When we look, once again, the risk is in the particle number. So here is what I'm talking about, this LDL-C versus LDL-P, LDL particles. LDL-C is just the total amount of LDL, but we want to know how that total amount is made up. Is it made up of little guys or big guys? Because when we have low LDL particles in both of these areas, your event-free survival is actually high compared to high LDL particles in both of these curves down here. But you can see that low LDL cholesterol or high LDL cholesterol by volume, it doesn't matter what those numbers are. All that matters is low LDL particles. Low LDL particles is associated with lower risk, higher event-free survival compared to these curves down here where we have high LDL particles. The best predictor amongst all the lipids is something called ApoB to ApoA ratio, and this is very easily measured by the doctors that are taking the time to do the high-quality testing. So if we look here, we can see that as the ratio of ApoA to ApoB goes up, we have a much higher risk of cardiovascular events. So we would like to really know that ApoB, and ApoBs are found on LDLs, ApoAs are found on HDLs. Now another particle that's very important is called lipoprotein A, or Lp(a). This looks like an LDL, but it can cause a lot more damage. It's taken up much more readily into plaque. And we can measure these Lp(a)s, and we can make a difference with those. Now, what about diet? We talk so many different things about diet. Let's get into it. And this I find extraordinary. Dietary cholesterol and cardiovascular disease, a meta-analysis where they look at 40 studies. And this is from 2015, the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, the biggest nutrition journal in the world. So what do they say? What are their conclusions? Dietary cholesterol 2015. The amount of cholesterol that you eat is not linked to coronary artery disease. It's not linked to stroke risk, CVA, cerebrovascular accidents. Dietary cholesterol found from animal products is not linked to coronary artery disease, is not linked to stroke. Now, obviously, if we're eating free-range grass-fed animal products like I recommend to everybody and I talk about in my best-selling book, this is what we need to do, eat those healthy quality products. Now, dietary cholesterol will increase your total cholesterol. It will increase your LDL, but it's the large, buoyant, fluffy variety. Dietary cholesterol will also increase your HDL, so that your ratio is good. Your LDL to HDL ratio is still maintained because both the numbers go up. But once again, let's get this and let's finally put the nail in this coffin. Dietary cholesterol has no link to coronary artery disease, heart attacks, and no link to strokes. 2015, big journal, a lot of studies were reviewed. What about saturated fat? Saturated fat is not linked to heart disease. Same journal from 2010. They look at almost 350,000 patients. A meta-analysis of prospective epidemiologic studies showed that there is no significant evidence that saturated fat is linked to cardiovascular disease. Saturated fat is not the problem. And here is another meta-analysis with over 500,000 participants from the Annals of Internal Medicine in 2014. Saturated fat is not linked to heart disease risk. So that's why I sell some of these products in my practice. From this, this is free-range pig fat, free-range duck fat, free-range beef fat. Great to cook with. What about fat and risk of stroke? They looked at almost 44,000 men for 14 years and conclude. This is Harvard, by the way, Harvard data. No evidence was found that the amount or type of dietary fat affects the risk of stroke. Fat doesn't cause stroke. It doesn't cause heart attacks. In fact, saturated fat is a large part of cell membranes. It prevents osteoporosis. It lowers that dangerous Lp(a). It's immune boosting. It protects the liver from toxins such as alcohol. And this is a depiction of the Dr. Wolfson Paleo Pyramid. So in our Paleo Pyramid, the foundation of our Paleo Pyramid is vegetables. Sometimes you see Paleo Pyramids from people and they have meat down there. But no, we should be eating vegetables with our breakfast, with our lunch, with our dinner, and plenty of. And then over here, we've got our meats, our birds, our seafood, and our eggs. And we've got healthy avocados and coconuts and olives. These are so extraordinarily healthy for us. Avocado is a great source of vitamin C and magnesium and fiber and potassium. Coconuts have all those super-duper saturated fats. People in the South Pacific, they live on coconuts and have no evidence of coronary artery disease despite the fact they all smoke. And olives. Olives, we all know from the Mediterranean diet studies that olives and olive oil is so healthy and beneficial. The nutrients that are inside olives are very cardioprotective. And then, of course, we have nuts and seeds such as almonds and walnuts and macadamia nuts and pistachio nuts, loaded with fat, but this is super healthy fats. Same thing with the seeds, the sunflower seeds, the pumpkin seeds, just extraordinary for our health benefits. And then once again, we cook with animal fats. We'll do coconut oil, we'll cook with olive oil and grapeseed oil are okay to cook with. They're better for kind of topping and dipping. And then we do fruit in season. We don't want to overdo it on the fruit front. But if you look over here, here's what we're talking about. We're talking about doing free-range animal products, grass-fed. So these birds and cows and lamb and bison and pigs, they're grass-fed, they're free-range, they're organic, preferably if we can find local. This is the paleo pyramid that we all need to follow and we all need to live by, and it's just super exciting, and the health ramifications and benefits are tremendous. Let's look at the paleo diet versus the SAD diet, or the standard American diet. We can see here, and this is data from PhDs where we get this from, that the majority of the diet was fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and eggs and avocados, avocados and coconut and those olives, 65% of the diet. But here we can see that our paleo ancestors, and paleo is about our ancestors that lived 10,000 years ago, 25,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago, and here's the foods they were eating: eggs, the fish, the shellfish, and the wild meats. Yet, contrast that today. So the pie is much bigger because, of course, our calorie consumption is much higher than where it was. But look at all these grain products: the wheat, the barley, the rye, the cereals, the pastas, the breads. This is 25% of our diet now, yet it was never in our ancestral diet. And of course, the sugar and the sweeteners, a big part, it's 17%. We never had dairy products, which is so prevalent today. And back then, look at this, how fruits and vegetables were like 65%, and now it's 7.8%. No wonder we've got so many health problems that are just exploding in today's society. And paleo versus the SAD diet again, where we look at current intake of these nutrients versus the old-time intake of these nutrients. And look at the cholesterol. The cholesterol we ate back then actually was almost double what it is today. And we had a lot more fiber than what we did back then. And most of these vitamins are much, much higher then than what we intake now. Of course, sodium is much higher now than it was back then, and potassium was extraordinarily high back then compared to what it is now. But I find this very interesting as well. The ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. Now it's 10 to 1 in favor of omega-6s. And I'm going to talk about those in a minute, what they are. Our paleo ancestors had a 1 to 1 ratio. And clearly this is a major, what they experienced. They had all those omega-3s. And omega-3s are going to be coming from your meats. They're going to be coming from your seafood. And yes, they also come in things like walnuts and flaxseed and other nuts and seeds as well. Here's where we're getting all those omega-6s, which are so dangerous for many, many reasons. Soybean oil, which is in everything. Safflower oil, sunflower oil, corn oil, cottonseed oil. This is just really damaging the human body. More paleo proof. Beneficial effects of a paleo diet in people with type 1 diabetes versus a conventional diet. Over a 3-month study, a Paleolithic diet improved glycemic control and several cardiovascular risk factors compared to a diabetes diet in patients with type 2 diabetes. The paleo diet certainly trumps the diabetic diet when it comes to all parameters: weight loss, cardiovascular benefits, and better blood sugar control. The research is there. What makes sense has been studied and is true. Now here we've got a study from the International Journal of Cardiology 2006. Low-carb diet shifts the lipid panel in the right direction. Lower VLDL, which is a nasty type of LDL particle. Increased large LDLs to make them those big, buoyant, fluffy. Decrease the amount of small LDLs, those nasty people, nasty types of LDLs, and increased the large HDLs and increased the number of HDLs. Low carb, and the best low carb is paleo. Eggs are like a multivitamin. They're like a multivitamin. Just look at all the different nutrients that a chicken gets to consume as it comes to life. It's, of course, is so much healthier than oatmeal, and if you look at all these different nutrients, it really reads like a multivitamin. It just contains everything. Interestingly enough, the only vitamin really that's not included here is vitamin C. Vitamin C. This is a gentleman that I saw a few years back, and he came to see me for cardiac clearance prior to gastric bypass surgery. He wanted to have the weight loss bariatric surgery, and I said, listen, you can have the surgery. You're at high risk to have the surgery. Bad things can happen to you while on the table, including heart attack, stroke, and death. But there's nothing I can really do to lower that risk. But what I can tell you about is this nutrition plan that I've been telling people, and it's called Paleo. And it's about eating nuts and seeds and eggs and avocados and coconuts and grass-fed meats and wild seafood and tons of vegetables. And then after that, I never saw him again. Until 3 years later, I got a letter in the mail. And the letter said, Dr. Wolfson, I followed your advice. I never had that gastric bypass surgery, and here I am today. He lost over 300 pounds following the right nutrition plan. I want to talk to you real quick about statin drugs, because if most of people are taught to be worried about high cholesterol, let's talk about statin drugs. This was the first statin drug trial in the 1990s. It looked at people that had never had a problem before. It was mostly men compared to women. The study was published in the biggest journal in the world, the Journal of the American Medical Association, 1998. And here's what their cholesterol levels were. And they got lovastatin drug or placebo, and they were followed for 5.2 years. And in reality, the group that got lovastatin did better as far as heart attacks and overall parameters. They did better and about 4% better, which is not trivial. 4% of people did better after 5 years on the drug. What I offer in my practice is not 10.9% or 6.8%. What I try and get my patients in my practice is to get them down to 0% using nutrition, lifestyle changes, and evidence-based supplements. But interestingly in this study, because what really matters to people is, do people live longer on statin drugs? This study showed that the total mortality at 5 years, the chances of dying, was the same or even a little bit higher in the lovastatin group. The drug group had a higher risk of dying, or let's say just about the same. Very fascinating. No difference in women. Here is an interesting trial published in 1994, and these are people that had already had a cardiac event. They've already had a heart attack. When you look at total mortality, chances of living and dying, in women, the drug group actually did worse. 6.6% chance of dying versus 6% in the females. What I'm here to tell you is, and I'm here to give you the facts, and the facts are this: if statin drugs work, they work by a small percentage, and I really feel, and it's been my experience as a holistic cardiologist for the last 6-7 years, that we can do better in a natural fashion without the use of pharmaceuticals. Now, I want to talk about supplements to lower cardiovascular risk. And these are products that are manufactured for the doctor's Wolfson. And we've got our greens powder, our beetroot powder, and our chlorella spirulina powder. There are tremendous benefits to taking these products, and this is what I use on a daily basis in my life, for my wife, and for my 2 children. The research is there, and I talk about this in my book on the benefits of using an organic greens powder housed in a glass bottle. The benefits of beetroot powder and what that does for circulation, inflammation, oxidation damage, for pain control. Really exciting stuff what beetroot does, because beetroot is a source of nitrates which eventually get converted by the body into nitric oxide that really open up those blood vessels for super circulation. And the superfood chlorella spirulina, great source of protein, lowers inflammation, improves allergy symptoms, asthma symptoms, and also is a tremendous detoxifier to bind onto the heavy metals so you poop them out the other side. Hypertension in the beets, like I said, here's a study from the journal Hypertension, 2015. Beetroot powder lowered blood pressure by 7.7 on the top number, which is systolic, and 5 points on the bottom. Beetroot works. I love it. 1 heaping teaspoon 2 times per day. We also created a product called Berba Plus, and Berba Plus is berberine, alpha-lipoic acid, and moringa powder. And we recommend this product either 1 cap 2 times per day or 2 caps 2 times per day. And this is all on the label, and of course you're welcome to email with questions. The benefits of berberine. These are all of the evidence-based benefits. Lowers cholesterol, lowers LDL, raises HDL, lowers triglycerides, decreases PVCs, which are the extra heartbeats, increases ejection fraction, increases exercise capacity, lowers blood sugar, anti-cancer, decreases inflammation, lowers dementia risk. Berberine has been studied by the Chinese for 75 years. Now, one interesting way that it lowers LDL is that it increases the number of LDL receptors on the liver that pull the LDL out of circulation, and then it gets broken down and reprocessed. Now, there is a new class of pharmaceuticals that were released last summer that are $15,000 a year. They're injectable, and they're called PCSK9 inhibitors. We can do better without the drug. We can do well without the drug, without the side effects, and we can do it naturally. Here's the benefits of alpha-lipoic acid, also inside the Berba Plus. and just read down that list, how it lowers oxidative stress, which is associated with everything, protects against free radical damage, chelates metals, lowers blood pressure, decreases dementia risk. This is in the literature, but the typical doctors are not reading this information. But it's there. I talk about this extensively in my book, and really, really exciting things with that. Moringa powder, great data with this. It's a detoxifier, protects against electromagnetic fields, cell phones and cell phone towers and wireless communication, anti-cancer, antimicrobial, lowers blood sugar, inhibits lipid damage, so it's not taken up by cells. Here we've got a picture of our multivitamin. This is kind of the third thing. The first thing that we looked at was the food powders, then we looked at the Burba Plus and our multivitamin. Just a phenomenal foundation to your daily supplements regimen. It's got a lot of magnesium, potassium, and it's got the high-quality activated B vitamins. It's got vitamin K2, which is probably the best form of vitamin K to help keep calcium in the bones and out of the arteries. We even included a small dose of lithium because lithium is a mood stabilizer that is just a naturally occurring molecule. It used to be in the soil, and now it's not. And then we have our citrus bioflavonoids, which are fantastic antioxidants, iodine for thyroid function and breast health. What our supplement, our multivitamin, does not contain is iron and copper. Those are heavy metals. Most people are not deficient in those two. We don't need them. The iron we can get from our meats, we can get it from our vegetables. Copper we can get from nuts and seeds. There's no fillers inside of our product outside of a little silicon dioxide. There's no magnesium stearate or stearic acid. So once again, I want to summarize. We've got our three products that really help modify that cholesterol panel, the daily greens, the beetroot, and the superfood. We've got our Burba Plus, and we've got our multivitamin. And I want to once again reiterate that cholesterol is not the problem. There was actually a recent study that showed the highest levels of cholesterol have the lowest dementia risk. What we want to do is we want to get tested and go after those small LDL particles. We want to look at inflammation. We want to look at our nutrients, and the testing is available out there, but most doctors are not doing it. We can do much better by really digging in deep. Now, I want to invite you all to go to the shop.thedoctorswolfson.com. On that page, you can use the code at checkout called Free Book. That will entitle you for 15% off of anything that you purchase, and also we will send you a free book. In addition, all proceeds from this free book seminar, 5% of that purchase goes to a group called the Organic Consumers Association. You can find them at organicconsumers.org. They are fighting for the rights of us to be eating organic food, grass-fed free-range meats, wild seafood. They are fighting for our rights, and they are a wonderful organization to support, and that's why the Doctors Wolfson support them. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you being on this call with me tonight. And in the chat box, there should be areas for questions if people do have questions. And once again, shop.thedoctorswolfson.com will take you to our site, and when you go to the checkout, it'll ask for a discount code, and that discount code is Free Book.
Hello?
Yes. Yes, was there a question? Anyone have a question? I will be able to provide.
I have a question.
Well, I did show. Yes, go ahead, please.
What is the lowest that your cholesterol can go?
What I try and do is, when it comes to how low can your cholesterol go, what I try and do is Find what's called the paleo cholesterol, or the perfect paleo cholesterol. So when you eat the right foods, live the right lifestyle, your cholesterol will be good for you, and sometimes we need to improve that with supplements. But there definitely is a point when cholesterol can go too low, and I think it's problematic. I think it compromises brain function, immune function. And for those people, I really try and push the animal fats with them to boost their cholesterol intake so they can go ahead and form cholesterol. That's one thing. Number two is cholesterol can go too low when people have a damaged gastrointestinal lining from something called leaky gut. Okay?
To calculate your paleo cholesterol, is it different than doing the cholesterol that's on, if I just went and got some done at Theranos, is it different than doing it with the blood?
Well, what you want to do is you want to look at the LDL particle numbers, the particle sizes, okay? Just so everyone knows that the presentation is recorded and will be available, okay? And somebody asked a question about raw dairy, and raw dairy is not very paleo, but if you're going to use dairy products, it's best to do the raw milk, raw cheese, raw butter, raw yogurt, raw cream. But our paleo ancestors did not chase other animals to drink their milk or to make cheese, butter, and yogurt out of them. And then otherwise, I think that's pretty much all the questions, unless anyone has anything else coming up. Somebody had a problem, I guess, going on to the link at shop.thedoctorswolfson.com, and it appears to be working right now, shop.thedoctorswolfson.com, and doctors is abbreviated DRS. And you can see all of our fantastic products on there. And once again, anything that's purchased tonight, 15% off, and 5% will be going to the Organic Consumers Association.
I have a question, if I could.
Yes.
Question. At what point would you get concerned if your cholesterol got to, say, 300 and they wanted to put you on a statin? Do you say, okay, you need a statin at a certain point, or do you not ever need a statin?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what I would say is that when I always want to know particle numbers, because the total cholesterol, as we said, is very poorly correlated with outcomes. So if we look at the particle numbers and the ratios, I want to know, because a lot of that total cholesterol may be the protective HDL. So I want to know what the numbers are. There are certain situations where I will use statin drugs, and that's typically for someone that has had an event but still has very high LDL particles despite what we're doing. We've got them on the berberine and other products that I recommend. Now, the other product that we could use in this scenario is something called red yeast rice. And the original statin came from red yeast rice. So oftentimes I will use red yeast rice on those people, and we'll get to 1,200 milligrams, 1,800 milligrams, and we always want to dose that at nighttime because that's when the lipids are made while we're sleeping.
Okay.
Real question. We got a couple people that talk about being vegan, and this is great. I love this interaction. This is wonderful. When it comes to going vegan, I think that vegan is certainly better than most diets that are out, certainly better than the standard American diets, but I do believe that we all should eat like our ancestors, where we do all need to eat some amount of meat and seafood in our diets for best health outcomes. And there is the best data, frankly, comes from vegans that also eat fish, so what's known as a pescatarian or pesco-vegetarian is good data there. But I do believe that the best people feel their best when they are eating some grass-fed meats and wild seafood. We put people on the my program. We follow them for 3 months and we repeat the blood work. That was one question. And as far as somebody asked about atrial fibrillation, the irregular heart rhythm, when it comes to atrial fibrillation, there's a lot we can do, but honestly, certainly you can follow the information in my book and you will do extraordinarily well, but sometimes you need the individualized testing to make sure that the vitamins and the nutrients and the minerals and the fats and the heavy metals, make sure everything is in the right place. And once again, the book, The Paleo Cardiologist, is the free book that is on our website for tonight, and that's what you will be receiving is a copy of my book, The Paleo Cardiologist, Amazon bestseller, 17 chapters, over 300 references at the end on why I make the statements I make. And I'm a very confident individual in my abilities and in my education because of my training as a conventional cardiologist. If somebody insults what I do as a holistic cardiologist, then they're insulting the 300 studies and the medical doctors and PhDs that wrote those studies at the end of my book.
Dr. Wolfson, I have a question.
Yes.
I did not have high cholesterol, but serendipitously they found that I had a clogged carotid artery and I had to have the surgery done. So they put me on Lipitor just for the fact that they said if it was clogged someplace, it was clogged someplace else, but I never had the high cholesterol to begin with, and I'd like to get off of it. Do you ever put people on a medication even though they don't have high cholesterol?
Well, I don't personally, but obviously I know that plenty of doctors do. And in someone like yourself, and frankly in anybody, that maybe cholesterol wasn't the problem, but once again we have to look at the particle numbers, the LDL sizes, the numbers of those particles. I'd want to know about inflammation, because inflammation is certainly associated with blockages, calcification. I'd want to look at nutrients and vitamins and minerals in order to prevent carotid plaque and carotid stenosis.
Okay.
So,
what blood do you ask your doctor for to get these particles checked? What blood test do you ask for?
Well, what you want is you want to ask for an NMR lipid profile, and that breaks down all the particle numbers. But my company, my testing companies of choice right now, one would be a company called Vibrant America. They do an excellent cardiovascular panel, and the other is called True Health Diagnostics. And if you want more information on these, please feel free to email my office, and we can kind of help you out with that. Our email address is health, HEALTH, @thedoctorswolfson.com, and we'll be happy to get you that information. But True Health Diagnostics, Vibrant America, there's a lot of testing companies now that are doing the very in-depth analysis that everybody needs.
Thank you.
Okay. I do see an individual question about their particular numbers, but the I don't want to comment too much on this because once again we want to know particle numbers and particle sizes, and the information that was sent to me did not provide that information. So once again we want to know more in-depth numbers. Someone asked once again about the beetroot powder. Beetroot powder is just extraordinary. It opens up blood vessels. It's a great source of nitrates, which are converted into nitric oxide. If you were to go to the emergency room with chest pain, they would give you a nitroglycerin under your tongue. Beetroot powder does just about the same thing. Organic beetroot powder, 1 heaping teaspoon, 2 times a day, does it naturally, does it better, lowers inflammation, lowers oxidation. It's really an exciting superfood product. And I think that's about it for tonight. So once again, I appreciate you all being on my call. Hopefully we'll be doing another webinar. We'll probably be talking about inflammation next. If you have questions or suggestions for future webinars, I'd love to field those. My products, everything I have is gluten. Someone asked about gluten. 100% of my products are gluten-free. There is no gluten in my office. That product is organic beetroot powder. I have an organic daily greens. I have the organic superfood. There is no gluten in anything. somebody had a problem with the vanilla protein powder, saying that link was not working, and I see it working on my site to be able to add that to the cart. So I see that as working, the vanilla protein powder. All my products are dairy-free as well. There is no dairy in any of those products. The beef protein is once again, it comes from grass-fed beef. The shop site is shop.thedoctorswolfson.com, and I'll put that into the message box here, shop.thedoctorswolfson.com. And if there is a problem with any of the products, of course, you can always email our office at health@thedoctorswolfson, and we'll get it straightened away. At the end of the day, I'm sure you all realize I am a doctor, and I'm not a techie, but I'm trying and try and get things improved on the next go-around and make sure that the audio works well and we have good interaction. But these are some fantastic questions. I really, once again, I appreciate you all being on the call, and look forward to speaking to you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.